minutes, so I'm excited. I think this platform is working well for us, especially during the period that we're in right now. And I hope everyone is staying well and safe and sane, which is easier said than done, especially if you ask my 16-year-old daughter, who is about to lose her mind, not being able to see friends. I'm sure others are exhibiting experiencing some similar things with their children. This morning, we've got, again, Rob LeBeau and Rob Cherof, and they're going to share with us the Atlanta Works website. And I'm really excited. This is a collaborative effort and a region-wide effort, and those are the things we all love to hear. So with that, I will kick it over to you, Rob.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. Rob and I are happy to be here and talk about effective regional alignment and outreach, and we're going to talk specifically about what's going on with atlworks.org, which is our new regional customer landing page. But before we get to that, I'm gonna do a little bit of background and talk about some of the other activities that's going on and some of the conditions that set us up to really put us on this path. So I'm going to share my screen here and get a PowerPoint up. Let's see if we get this working. All right, so hopefully everybody sees the PowerPoint. And I'm going to be talking through this, and the way this works, unfortunately, is I lose the chat function view, but Rob or Amy, if you see questions that come up in the chat box, let me know and we can stop and have a conversation. All right, so first of all, what are some of the conditions that have been affecting the workforce ecosystem? And so I've got two different slides on this. So prior to March 2020, of course, we had a complicated workforce system, which was disconnected, and it really is confusing to customers, but there were some alignment activities that were underway that have been started over the last couple of years. We have low unemployment. We were, down to 3%, and it was getting harder and harder to reach our customers, our job seekers. And along with that is our employers were struggling to find qualified workers. They were having job postings that were going unfilled for many months. And we were really trying to get more job seekers to engage with us in our services. And then we were also seeing that our federal program funding was trending lower. That has a lot to do with the federal workforce funds are distributed based on economic conditions, and the areas that are doing better economically get less workforce dollars. So our funds were trending lower because Metro Atlanta was doing fairly well compared to other areas in the state and across the country. And then kind of an underlying issue here was customers just didn't know how to access our services. Many people had said, we are one of the best kept secrets, which is not something you want to be, because we have great services available, but people just weren't, many people weren't able to find our services. And to underline just the complicated system, many people have probably already seen this map, but in the state of Georgia, there are 19 local workforce boards comprised in 12 regions. So the map of Georgia on the left, you see the 12 color-coded regions, and then the numbers are the local workforce development boards. And then if you zoom in on the bigger picture on the right, this is just the 10-county Metro Atlanta area. And in that area, we have 5 different workforce boards. So when I say complicated system, you can see the blue is all WorkSource Atlanta Regional. And then you have WorkSource Cobb, WorkSource Fulton, WorkSource DeKalb, and WorkSource Atlanta, the city of Atlanta. But the reality is we are one labor shed. And so our businesses and our job seekers cross all these lines all the time. And it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense as a job seeker or as a business to figure out which of the workforce areas you are in. So let's fast forward to March 2020, COVID-19, social distancing, shutdown of a lot of our businesses and activities. So some of the underlying conditions it is still a complicated workforce system, but we continue with alignment activities. And now what we're seeing are significant layoffs and skyrocketing unemployment. We still have some employers that are struggling to find workers, where other employers are just laying off people. And we're shifting to primarily online services. Now, and then potential new funding is going to be coming in. Unfortunately, we just found out from the workforce boards that the state of Georgia is getting about a 9% cut for our next year allocation in adult and youth funds, and about a 4% cut in dislocated worker funds. That is our regular allocation beginning July 1st. But there's an opportunity for new funding coming in. And so that also raises some potential to provide additional services. And then still underlining this, just like before, it's a complicated system and customers don't know how to access our services. So we started talking about alignment activities and also outreach activities, which we're going to get into in a second. But just one point that I want to highlight on our skyrocketing unemployment. This is weekly unemployment claims by industry for the 10-county Metro Atlanta area. If you look at March 7th, before COVID-19 hit, there were 1,800 claims. And some of the when I say big industries, there really aren't any that are huge numbers outside of the others, but administrative support, 300, 150 in transportation warehousing. But look to 1 month later, April 4th, and you can see 201,000 UI claims and a staggering 57,000 claims in accommodation and food services. So that industry is just being hit tremendously hard. And then the other ones, retail trade, 21,000, administrative support, 18,000, healthcare, 19,000. So really significant layoffs across all industries, really, when you look at it, but some just being clearly decimated for their workers right now. So in order to effectively provide services, we knew this before COVID-19, that we needed to do some more regional alignment and collaborative activities. And that really is becoming even more critical now when we have these massive layoffs. So a couple of the things that we're doing, I'm just gonna touch on these real quickly and then spend more time on our regional outreach activities. But I wanna touch on these quickly and then hopefully you can find more information if you wanna go on yourself, or each one of these could really be a Max Minutes talk on its own. First of all, Max, this is kind of the beginning of the modern collaborative activities. So back in 2014, the Metro Atlanta Exchange for Workforce Solutions came together under a pilot project, which really was about putting together this provider portal. And then the organization found that it was important that they were serving a great role as a convener for workforce issues. And so Max really began in 2014 and has remained strong for 6 years now, including going on with Max Minutes and these other online services during COVID-19. So thank you all for those who were some of the pioneers in Max, and thank you all for engaging today and staying involved in Max opportunities. So the next one is MAPE, the Metro Atlanta Industry Partnerships. This started actually 3 years ago as HDCI, the High Demand Career Initiative under the previous governor. And this is an effort to align targeted industry work in the 10-county Metro Atlanta area. We were fortunate to receive a grant from the State Workforce Office that started the HDCI activities and regional industry partnerships around 3 sectors: IT, healthcare, and transportation, distribution, logistics. And then last year, about a year, last year we received another grant from the State Workforce Office and to continue this work and to expand it into 2 other sectors, which is skilled trades and manufacturing. And you can see that there are 5 service lines that this work is engaged around. And we have a great partnership with Atlanta Career Rise under contract to help lead these efforts for the 5 workforce boards. And then another program with Atlanta Career Rise, this is Systems Change for Economic Mobility. And this is a grant that Atlanta Career Rise actually received through the National Fund and then coordinated with the 5 Metro Atlanta workforce boards to really look at how we can impact Metro Atlanta's economic mobility. Unfortunately, many of you have probably already seen the data that says, if you look at the top 50 metro areas throughout the country, Atlanta was one of the most successful in economic development coming out of the recession, but we were last in economic mobility. So if you were born into the lower quintile of income, we have the lowest opportunity to move up to the highest quintile. So that is something we definitely need to work on. And you can see that this grant is looking at 3 objectives, looking at data, looking at aligning an application. And this is critical because the 5 workforce boards all use paper applications, and they are all different applications. And this objective is trying to get to one single application so the customer seeking services from the workforce board can do that online in a single application. And we have started piloting some of those efforts just recently. And then finally, we haven't really started this objective yet, but it's to move on and to strengthen the capacity of our community-based training providers. All right, and the last one I'm going to touch on quickly is the Regional Workforce Initiative, and this kicked off in March. This is led by some of the top executives of some major organizations within the Metro Atlanta area, including Atlanta Regional Commission, Metro Atlanta Chamber, United Way, Community Foundation, the Federal Reserve, and the Blank Foundation have all come together and said this is a priority. And so we kicked this off on March 4th, and many of you were probably there. We had over 120 attendees. And the goal you see up here is to advance economic mobility to promote a competitive Metro Atlanta economy by creating an accessible, holistic, and responsive regional workforce system. What's key here is this is not just about the workforce boards. This initiative is about the entire workforce system. So everything from training providers to nonprofits to technical colleges and universities, the whole realm of those of us working in the workforce system. If you've not engaged in this yet, I encourage you to do so. We are continuing to do this through online activities, and then once the social distancing efforts relax, we will go back to some additional ways to get involved in this. But this is going to be a critical way to move the entire workforce system forward in a more collaborative effort. All right, so what we wanted to get to today and talk more specifically are some regional outreach activities. And so this actually started back in 2018. And so WorkSource Atlanta Regional, we were seeing that the numbers of people, the number of customers coming into our centers were decreasing and starting to decreasing pretty quickly. If you remember back to the first slide, so we had very low unemployment, harder to reach our customers. So we hired Rocket Camp, which is a local consulting firm, to help us craft a message that would resonate with our customers and then create an outreach process to best get to those customers in a targeted fashion. And so we went through a competitive process. We hired Rocket Camp, and Rob Cherof is the president of that group, and he's going to talk about some of these efforts in a little bit more detail. And they talked to our customers, they talked to our providers, they talked to our staff, and started creating a message. And then the call to action was really driving people to a single landing page, driving customers to a single landing page called atlworks.org. Now, granted, when this started, it was only focused on our 7-county area. But what we did is we decided we were going to do 2 primary activities. We were going to do some targeted billboards in areas within our 7-county service area and areas that had a high likelihood of potential customers. And then we were going to do some online advertising or outreach efforts. And so what you see, the blue bar down there shows when we launched atlworks.org, we had no outreach. And then we started with the billboards. And you see we had 0 activity, and we started seeing, these are per day views of our ATL Works site. We were getting 25, 30 views, maybe up to 50. And then in July, we launched the digital work. And you see the views jumped up to about 100 views per day to this ATL Works site. And then over about a 2-month period, we had 2,400 sessions. That's 2,400 times people went on and they viewed the pages 3,500 times. And 21% of the people, or 750 people who went to that website, filled out a form and said, I want more information. So from a response standpoint, that was a really positive effort and response of getting people to go to that website and fill out a form saying, I want more information about the services you provide. And then what happened is we were just targeting the 7 counties, but of course, because we have one labor shed and people cross boundaries all the time, we were getting people saying, hey, I live in Metro Atlanta and I would like to know more about this. So we went out and we spoke with the other 4 workforce boards, and we all agreed that we would revamp this as a regional outreach, and that we would make ATL Works a regional landing page for all 5 workforce boards, where the job seekers and the employers can come to one site and get basic information about what the services are that we provide. And then you can go to a page that identifies by county. You click on a county, it tells you where the closest career center is. It tells you where the closest mobile lab is going to be and what location and when. Or you can fill out just your address and it will tell you what county you're in and show you the same information. And then finally it gets to a page which says, if you want to get involved in these programs, fill out this form, and it goes directly to a local staff person in one of those 5 areas, who will then respond to the customer saying, thank you for showing your interest. Let's get started. How can I help you out? And so we're really excited where this WorkSource, where this Atlanta atlworks.org landing page is going towards. And as we get to questions here, we'd like to hear some more suggestions from you as our audience about how we can enhance this site as well. And let's see what my next page is here. All right, so let me just wrap up with this. So we are going to be launching some additional outreach activities coming up very, very soon. Of course, we're moving to a lot of digital work, and Rob's going to talk about how we've shifted from pre-COVID outreach activities to post-COVID outreach activities. So I'm going to turn it over now to Rob Cherof, who is the president of Rocket Camp, and he's going to talk more specifically about his efforts with us. And then we have time at the end where we will have some questions for all of us. But before I do that handoff, Amy, were there any questions that came up while I was talking that we need to answer before we move on?
Yes, there was one about when you had talked about the jobs. Was there, let me see if I can find it again. Are there any job opportunities for undocumented clients who only have tax IDs?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there are, now it depends on, if you want to get fully into the workforce board services, you have to show that you are legally able to work in the area in order to get services. Now, if you don't fully enroll in services, we can still do some job matching. And so if we have, if we know that there are jobs out there, we can match them up. Now, I don't know specifically what jobs are available for those that aren't, may not have the full documentation, but there are opportunities to serve them. And one of the things I do want to mention when you talk about jobs, one of the big things we're going to go to that we're really excited about is also using ATL Works as a jobs resource page. And I think Rob's going to talk about that, how we're going to get into also having some potential jobs that are being offered on this page as well.
Rob, can I ask one more question before we turn
Absolutely.
it over to the next Rob?
Yes.
You mentioned the job matching, and there's a big push for that right now, especially with the number of layoffs, and then there still are companies hiring. What does that look like now? What's the capacity? What's that what is that service that you're providing?
Right. And so our business services people are going out and talking to existing companies that have positions, and we're trying to collect what those positions are. And then when we're getting customers who are saying that they're ready to get employed, we're trying to make those connections. I will say it's been interesting from the local workforce board standpoint that the number of customers coming looking for services has decreased right now. And when you think about the conditions, it actually makes sense, because people are being laid off. First and foremost, they want to try and get unemployment. They want to get some food security. And so at this point, we've seen a slowdown in those looking for jobs, at least through our services, but we anticipate that is going to increase dramatically in the near future. And so having an aligned activity and having these resources up and running and ready to go when that influx of requests comes in is going to be really critical.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to turn it over to Rob Cherof, and I think he's going to try to grab the screen here and move on.
Okay, so did the handoff work? It looks like it did. All right, everyone can see my screen. It says Rocket Camp and WorkSource. I'm going to proceed. So thanks, Rob. When we were brought in, it was over 2 years ago. The ARC brought us in, and the first thing we did was a lot of research with job seekers and people who've been through the program, and it really opened our ideas or our mind to what a great resource this was. And I'm quite certain that's when we heard, this is like the best kept secret. You need to let people know about it. And so our role throughout has been outreach. And what we really want to do is make sure the right people see the right message presented in the right way. And that's what we've been doing for the last couple of years. And Rob showed some of the results. While everything was going swimmingly well, all of a sudden we had COVID-19. So today what I want to do is show how we've responded to that just in the last month, and give you a sense of what's going on now and where it might lead. Again, our program is to let people know about the communication, or let people know about the programs going on. We have to communicate it well. So I'm going to go over 3 areas. One is guiding principles for communicating. And really, it's so easy to just get really tactical. And we like to step back and say, what are we trying to do? What are the principles here? And then what's the specific response? I'm going to show you really a preview of some work that's just being finalized. It hasn't even started working yet. And then we'll talk briefly about implications and next steps, and I'll leave some time for questions to answer any questions or thoughts you may have. So let's begin with some of our guiding principles. And I think these are things that are relevant now, but since they're principles, of course, let's think about them for the long term. The first is, we need to see the world through the eyes of the people we want to reach. Anytime we engage with an organization, the first thing they do is tell us all the things they have to offer. And really, it's kind of an inside perspective. And we needed to focus all of the efforts to job seekers and employers. So I'll give you a great example of that. Rob showed the map with 5 different WorkSource boards, and people cross counties and areas, and nobody knows if I live in the domain of one board and work in another board, or where I'm looking for a job. They just want to know, where's the resource? How do I find it? How can it help me? So we want to see the world through their eyes. Secondly is, let's just acknowledge that these are extraordinary times and it's not business as usual. And I think it's really interesting. The first reaction is, I'm going to step back and sit on the sideline and wait till this sorts itself out. Well, if we did that, nobody would know about the resources WorkSource offers. So one, we have to realize the message has to change, and the cadence of the message and the way we tell it all has to change right now. At the same time, let's not lose sight of the long game. And WorkSource is a great resource for this area and for potential job seekers. In fact, it's going to be even more important in many ways. If we didn't have this organization, someone would be trying to figure out, or these programs, they'd be trying to figure out how do we invent something like this right now. So the long-term implications are absolutely relevant, and we don't want to get so tactical that we just talk about what's going on today without also positioning WorkSource to be a resource for the long haul. The fourth thing is, use communication strategically. Just because you have a zillion things to say doesn't mean you need to say them all, and you don't need to say them all at once to everyone. So we're trying to be much more precise on what the message is and how we distribute that message. And lastly, I tell this to my team, don't forget to breathe. Yes, these are extraordinary times, but we can handle it. We're built for this. And let's just keep our heads and our wits about us, and we'll be able to do the right things in a logical, smart way. So those are the things that guided the work along the way. Here's what we're doing. This is what we do with that. So you'll see how this dovetails what Rob shared. First, we're promoting new resources that atlworks.org offers. So instead of driving people to the career resource centers and the website, we're driving people to the website. Obviously, they can't go to the career resource centers, but this gives us the ability to tell a lot of people about enhanced resources. So atlworks.org is now the hub, and we've enhanced that. I'll show you how shortly. To get people there, we've created digital ads that will be running in each county and the city of Atlanta. So every area will have messages going out to them, and it'll drive them to this resource page within atlworks.org. The third thing is we're trying to coordinate better across the areas, across the board. So we've done an inventory of who's using what channels, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or a website, so that our messages can send people. The idea is to send them to atlworks.org and make that the hub, and then link out to these other areas. The fourth thing is adding emphasis to employer communications. In March, we had begun some research already with employers. And when I say research, we're talking to people and gaining qualitative insights. What about the program that works best for you? How can we communicate with you? And that's in progress right now. We're developing materials for employers to promote this program. And the last thing is we're seeking out and finding stories that inspire job seekers. So this has been a little bit of a shift. Where we were was, let's make sure people understand the program. Let's make it welcoming. Let's make it accessible. We wanted people to see that this great resource was out there, but not in the usual way people expect big governmental things to run. It had to have a warmth to it and an ease of navigation. But now we're adding to that. What we want to do is be more inspiring. And to do that, we're going to have people tell their stories. Here's how it helped me. This is what I found that helped my search. So those are the things we're doing. And let me show you the implications of that. And it seems subtle, but these are actually big deals. This is how it changes the program. One, we went from this emphasis on the long term, go from a job to a career, here's training you can receive, to a focus on support right now. Don't sit back. There are resources for you. Here's how to write your resume. Here's where to find a job. So we've added a lot of urgency to the messaging. We went from highlighting the training that really enhanced credentials, if you will, to highlighting online resources. So there's training, but it's now training on how to find the job rather than the credentialing for the job. We always had targeted outreach. Even when we ran billboards, they were designed to run near departments of labor. We measured the counties and prioritized zip codes by employment. And so that was targeted, but now we've moved to what I'm going to call micro-targeting, because with a digital program, you can really be more precise with whom you reach. And then we went from the general services and positioning of WorkSource to calling out specific resources. I'll show you what I mean by that in a moment. So here's examples of the work we've just created. None of this is running yet. It's all basically in queue. It's going through final approvals and revisions to run. But we know that people use mobile devices, maybe computers a little bit more now that they're home, but they use primarily mobile devices. So everything's designed to work first in mobile. And we call this targeted outreach is designed to speak to them now, but also to position WorkSource for the long haul. So if you're starting at the top, you see the line says, stay safe at home and take control of your job search with free online training and support from career coaches. Stay there, we're here, and then job search with support. So you could see this is just, it's friendly, we're not selling anything, we're just acknowledging the situation but positioning WorkSource. And a CTA means the call to action. We always like to ask people to do something. You click that button to sign up, and it's going to take you to a new landing page within the atlworks.org. So this is going to be a new page that's on there. You're there, we're still here. And I won't read all the copy here, but it's a sign up for services and then virtual resources. So just the leads, the WorkSource Metro Atlanta's career resource centers are temporarily closed. We're still here and committed to supporting you. People need to know someone's out there for them. And that message in itself makes this worthwhile. But we're also providing specific services, and we have to let people know about it. It's the perfect time to shore up your job search techniques from the safety of home. Our free webinar series covers topics like networking, interviewing tips, perfecting your resume, etc. So you can see how that works. If you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see a sign-up sheet that will capture information about them. County of residence, we can try to direct them to the resources that work more closely to them, though since it's virtual, everything really seems to work or should work for them. But you can see how this plays out. Okay. From there, it starts getting, I think it starts getting more exciting in my mind, because now all of a sudden you've got these great resources that go beyond the career counselor. And if I'm sitting at home and I think there's nothing out there for me and I don't know where to look, and maybe there's too much out there for me and it's so intimidating, I go to this page, and we've designed this to look and feel very much like a Netflix menu. And everyone's familiar with a Netflix menu, especially now. But you can search by featured webinars, upcoming, ask the career expert, interview advice. So you'll click on the type of category and you'll see different resources that are available to you. So we think this information we've already put up there in a temporary mode. It's just a long list, but this will go up in this menu format in the next couple of weeks. So this is exciting. I think this will help people. And you could see how, when I said, realize it's extraordinary times, we have something up right now, but play the long game. And you can see how this will always be relevant. It's just the specific resources could change. If you scroll down this page, you'll get to this area. And this is where it gets really immediate. Job search resources. Ready to start applying? WorkSource can point you in the right direction. Check the links to the resources below. And here's where we'll list specific links of things that are available now. And then in the next session, it's going to say, follow us to stay informed. If any of the boards have their own Facebook page, for example, that they want to send people to get daily updates, they'll click on one of those. And this will be enhanced as we add different county-specific resources. So again, we're using a micro-targeted digital campaign to reach people, job seekers primarily, get them to come to atlworks.org, where we can show them, hey, we're here for you. Look at all of the resources we have. And if you're looking for a job right now, you can just skip to the job search resources and go there. So we think, and also I just want to point out this banner, want to speak to a counselor, sign up now. And this takes you back to the sign up page. You're not going to click and speak to a counselor immediately, but we'll then again be able to capture names. And what I really like about the program, besides the functionality, is it gets back to regional alignment and collaboration, and it puts the job seeker's interests first. Again, they don't care where you're sending me, they just want to know these resources are available, and they're available throughout for everyone there. So that takes us to what happens next, and I could have made a list of 20 questions. I'm going to put 3 here. These are just considerations. How do we accommodate all the new job seekers? I think we're off to a good start by offering the resources and the job search guide. Can we reinforce our role as their go-to resource for the job search? So rather than just saying, here's temporary help right now, what I love about this is we've built it in a way that it can continue to operate and we can be seen as the go-to resource. And then the other question I laid out here is, what message will help employers as they ramp back up? People anticipate some sort of bounce, if you will, but I don't think anyone has a sense of how fast and in what areas exactly. So we just want to be able to be agile enough to support the need that's out there. And that'll lead me to my last slide, which is just a big thank you. This has been a project that we've put a lot of heart into, and we feel like we're vested throughout, and we really appreciate the opportunity and the cooperation from everybody. And if anyone has specific questions for me beyond this session, I've put my email down here. I'm happy to help out with that. And I'm going to turn it back over for questions now.
All right, and so Rob, I just want to say thank you for your continued support. We've been working with Rob for the last 2 years, and I also want to thank the other directors. This really is evolving to a fantastic coordinated approach among the 5 workforce boards in Metro Atlanta, and really excited about how this is going to roll out over the next few weeks. And then we'll shift again when the social distancing component in the state and the state of emergency is lifted. We'll have to find out what is the best outreach effort and the best method to get to our customers. Of course, digital is going to remain important, but what are the other areas? How can we do that? And I think what's important about having somebody like Rob on board is thinking about where we are now and how do we do the outreach, but then thinking ahead is how do we prepare and make sure as conditions shift that we're in a place that we could reach our customers. I think that's an important component of doing this work. I know we had a couple of questions, and one, there was a question about who are the career coaches. So let me emphasize, so the ATL Works page is the page for the customers of our 5 workforce boards. So the 5 local workforce boards, we really have 2 customers. We have job seekers and we have employers that are looking for assistance with their workforce. So those are our customers. So when we're providing, so that's the outreach focus. And then when we say our career coaches or our counselors, those are the staff at the career centers and at the 5 workforce boards. Now, part of this Max Minutes discussion today is, one, to let everybody know that this resource is out there, but 2 is also to get your feedback. And so one of the things we've started to hearing is, what about other customers and partners such as training providers? Yes, we want to have that conversation. That's not designed for this site currently, but we want to have that conversation with you. And if you have ideas on how we can engage with you through this process and be more collaborative, we definitely want to have that discussion. And so if you have thoughts, please let us know, whether it be in the chat box here or contact us afterwards about how we use this for other partners. And then I believe, Amy, there was one other question about youth, and then I saw the follow-up. Yeah, I do think that should be a separate discussion. Addressing youth programs is going to be critical. And I don't know if any of my partner workforce boards are on the line, but I know that DeKalb had set aside some specific dollars for youth programming over the summer. Unfortunately, what we saw, as I mentioned at the very beginning, that we're seeing, at least from the state, about a 9% cut in youth programs from U.S. Department of Labor. I'm not sure how that's going to play out for specific areas yet. But we will have to look at those youth dollars and how do we leverage them the best way possible. And you're right, how are we going to deliver youth programs over the summer if we're still under a social distancing set of standards? And that's something we're going to need to continue to discuss. Amy, I'll turn it back over to you if you have any other questions that are coming through.
There was another question in the question and answer box. Is there a strategic plan to handle the influx over the next several months?
The influx, from the workforce boards, I'm assuming that is something we're talking about. And actually, the workforce board directors meet periodically. We're meeting next Monday, and that is one of the topics that we are going to be discussing specifically, is how do we handle that influx? As I mentioned, right now, there have been fewer customers, but we know that's going to increase. And we're going to start strategizing on how we're prepared when we actually have that influx of customers seeking our services. Amy, I see there's a question about, is there a link to the Max Provider Portal? I don't know if you want to follow up with that specifically.
Yes, sorry, I was on mute and I was giving Chris Motor a shout out for asking the question, considering this is max minutes. So that would be great. I know we talked about that briefly yesterday, but I think that's, as Rob mentioned before, how do we leverage what's already happening, but make sure we're kind of bringing these things all together in a way that is beneficial to the job seekers. And so that's how can we leverage the Max portal is definitely on the discussion table to best do that.
Right. And I see Elka Davidson had a good question about what are the options for narrowing our communications to support more locally targeted workforce initiatives? And Rob, that's actually, if you want to touch again about the micro targeting, about how we're going to be doing that. And that's exactly where we're going with this type of effort, is really focusing it down to very key areas and communities in our region.
So it's a great question, and again, I think this is where the plan is built for the situation. So on one hand, we're going to create, let's call it a default target group designed to reach a group of people across the counties that need the services. So that's the general target. But we've asked and are continuing to ask each of the county boards to give us any hotspots or priority areas or specific target audiences for us. When I say digital, everyone has their own interpretation of what that means. What it really means is when people are looking at their Facebook feed or their Instagram feed, they're going to see this ad. Or when they go online and search for these kinds of services, the ad will be served back to them. But we get to just define that audience. And it just gives everybody at a local level the ability to request, hey, I want to reach, and fill in the blank, I want to reach renters who ordinarily who don't own cars. And we can find them, and where we would have run ads on transit, now we're going to serve the ads through digital. So it just gives us a lot of flexibility, and we can change it almost in real time as the audiences shift too. So I think that's going to serve us really well. The other thing is we'll be able to measure it quite accurately. Who's clicking on these ads, who's responding to them. So if we find an audience in one county, for example, that really responds, we might then replicate that kind of audience to the next county.
So,
right, and the other, oh, sorry, I mean,
go ahead, Rob.
The other approach is going old school. And this is something that we were getting ready to launch before COVID, but we printed up a bunch of flyers, and we were going to work with community members on getting the flyers out to local areas within specific communities. So getting it to the churches and getting it to the gyms and getting it to the beauty salons. So really an old school approach, but targeting, not just putting flyers absolutely everywhere, but targeting to specific communities and specific organizations or businesses or whatever, where potential customers are frequenting. And so the old school approach still works. It's labor intensive by walking around and handing these things out, but it doesn't work so well when you're social distancing. So we'll look at that again when the COVID-19 kind of settles down.
So we've got a couple more questions. One is about incumbent worker training programs, and how is there a potential for those to be coordinated through the ATL Works website?
Yes, ATL Works is also for businesses, and so incumbent worker services is something that is a core service through our business outreach efforts. So yes, on-the-job training, incumbent worker, customized training, those types of things specifically for businesses can be filtered through this website as well.
And then another question is, will y'all be sending updates through Max? I mean, we're happy to share any updates to the site, or when you're needing information from the Max community. So I assume that we'll say yes.
Yes. Sorry, yes.
We're starting to get lots of questions, which is very positive. Have there been any discussions on how to serve the target group that do not have access to technology, either internet or PC itself?
I'll jump in on that one. We've started talking about it. There's not an answer yet. So, and I'll tell you why. The ways to reach the broader market is with broader media. So when I say that, I'm talking about TV and radio and billboards. Well, one, billboards have less value to us right now because people aren't out. That's one way we can look at, and we will look at going forward, will be, are there strategic boards that we should place as the city comes back to life, if you will. TV and radio less so. It's so broad reaching, and it is by definition a targeted outreach program. So we want to be careful with that. And radio we tried last year, designed to reach employers. So they generally have the technology needs that we can reach them that way. So otherwise radio wasn't all that effective for us.
And the other component we were considering, again, before all this hit, was transit. And so do we do some outreach activities, particularly in, on MARTA lines, either at the shelters or at the stations or on the trains or on the buses. That is a good focused area, but of course right now not so much. And then we would also look at the other areas on MARTA, on Greta Express, or in Gwinnett, or in Cobb, on their local systems. So that is something that we will consider again when the time is right.
Do you have some stock collateral for social media that partners can push out for you to help drum up any traffic?
Rob, do we have that yet?
Yeah, there's not stock social media that I know of that we've done. I shared one example of kinds of messages that we're doing. And that was one of several. There's several different executions that'll go with that. And if there's a way for that to run, if there's a way to expand distribution through partners, I think that's great. And the call to action to send them back to atlworks.org, provided people are comfortable sending people there, I think that makes a lot of sense. So I think that's something we can follow up on with Rob's team.
Okay, perfect. Helen had asked about it, Rob, if you could mention the CRM project.
Sure, and as I think this will really help us with our business services outreach activities. 5 workforce boards. We have 5 different programs that get to our businesses. And right now we track that all individually, whether it's on spreadsheets or notepads or whatever local areas are doing. But we are going to be releasing an RFP very shortly to look at doing a regional CRM, so a customer relations management software, so that we could share that among the 5 workforce boards, the 10 counties. What are the businesses we're talking to? Who are we talking to? What are their needs? How are we responding? And really have a more coordinated approach to that. So we're excited about that opportunity. And if you have any thoughts on that, we'd be glad to hear from it. And if you, like I said, the RFP will be released pretty shortly. It'll be led by the Atlanta Regional Commission, just from our purchasing and processing standpoint. And so if you have thoughts on who that should go out to, let me know and we can certainly get it to them.
So we got a couple more questions in the Q&A box. One, will there be any changes? This is definitely to Rob LeBeau, about how ETPL programs will be approved during this crisis, and will training providers be allowed to make adjustments to currently approved programs, like a hybrid, in light of the current situation regarding social distancing?
Yes, so the regional ITA working group is still meeting. In fact, they met yesterday virtually. So they review all requests for new training programs as well as amendments to existing training programs. So if training providers are shifting how they're delivering services, they're shifting costs, they're shifting their needs. Those applications are still coming through ARC, through Julius at our office, or you can send them to me or Phyllis Jackson. So those are still coming in, and the ETL program is not on hold at all. We're still offering all those same reviews and taking in new programs, updating existing programs. We will still meet quarterly and do that. One of the discussions that they had yesterday is how are we going to handle the shift to online training? That discussion is just beginning, and that will continue. But we do know that our training providers have to change the way that they are delivering their services to their customers, and we want to be able to reflect that in the ETPL and the training listings that we have offered. So yes, we're still meeting. Going through the regular ETL process is still happening. So continue to use those links online.
Okay. And one final question around the ATL work site. Does it connect with the DOL's Employ Georgia site?
Yeah, when Rob showed the 3 current buckets for job resources, one of them is a direct link to the WorkSource Georgia portal. I'm sorry, to the Employ Georgia portal. That was the first button that was on there. The other button is going to be a listing of jobs that we have been working with our partners. And then the third listing is links to other jobs boards. We know that a lot of people have jobs boards out there, and we would be glad to list that as a resource. But yeah, Employ Georgia is definitely one of the key connections on that site.
Okay, and sorry to pivot back to the previous topic about training done virtually. Kinnear Brooks asks, even though my class is virtual for classroom training, can I break my class down into a smaller group to attend my hands-on portion of my course where they will have to be there physically? Will that be a liability at this time?
Good question, and I do not think I'm in the position to answer the liability question. I'm going to defer that question, and we can check with our in-house counsel about that. So sorry, I don't have a good answer for you right now. I know we just need to follow all of the governor's requirements for social distancing, and we are not going to be directing specific training providers on how they should deliver their services. Yeah, that'll be up to y'all to follow all the requirements for that.
Well, I'm gonna call that the final question, but I want to thank you both for joining us. This has been, I think we've had the most attendees for a max minutes thus far. At one point we got up to 90, so very, very excited about that. Thank you so much, and really excited about this work that we're doing as a region and how it can really benefit job seekers and employers. So thank you for all that work. And Rob Cherof, your guiding principles, the simplicity of that, I'm envious given the work we've done with the Regional Workforce Initiative. Rob will go to that too. Yeah. I'm very envious. So we might be talking later.
Yeah, we wrote them without a committee.
Oh, okay then. That's not fair.
I know.
So with that, I just want to do a couple of max updates. Since our last max minutes, we had a lot going on. We had a leadership network where Nathaniel Smith with Partnership for Southern Equity spoke about equity in the workforce, and really kind of honing in on this work that we're doing with the Regional Workforce Initiative. And then we also had a board meeting, so a very full, intense board meeting, so that was great to get the board back together. Our next max minutes is Friday, May 8th, and that will feature Mike Carnathan with the Atlanta Regional Commission. He's got some great data on the economic impact of COVID-19 and specifics around which industry sectors are impacted the most. Some really wonderful data, so we're excited about that. And with that, I hope that everybody has, one other thing I forgot to mention is The Metro Atlanta Industry Partnership next webinar is on Thursday, next week, Thursday. And they've been doing industry sectors as their focus. And so they're really getting some insights directly from employers how COVID-19 is impacting them and their hiring strategies and keeping talent, converting talent, all of those things as it relates to talent and COVID-19 and the challenges there. So please join MAPE for that call next Thursday. And with that, I will call it a wrap. Have a wonderful, safe and healthy weekend, and please stay well, and look forward to seeing you all, or at least hearing you and getting all your questions at our next Max Minutes on May 8th. Bye-bye, everybody.